Hello everybody, we're back again for part 2 of the exciting CIE 412 Socio-Cultural Issues in Comparative and International Education syllabus overview. If you're still with me, thank goodness you've made it through 10 or a little more than 10 minutes of introduction about the course and about the website, and we looked at the first part of the syllabus. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the course grading and assignments. It's pretty straightforward. If you're looking at the syllabus, you'll see that participation is 10% of your grade. Leading a discussion one of the weeks is 10% of your grade. The take-home exam, that'll be the midterm exam, is 40% of your grade, and the final group project is also 40% of your grade. It makes the math really easy for me. It all adds up to 100. Super exciting. All right. So let's talk about what those mean. First of all, participation means participate. Who was it that said that 99% of life is showing up? That's fairly true with class as well. 99% of how well you do in a class is simply showing up. So you need to come to class, or you need to be involved in class, whether you're in person or online. It needs to be very apparent to me and to your classmates that you're there. That's important. All right. When you do come to class, can you please make sure that you've read the readings beforehand and that you ask questions about the readings and engage your peers in what might be called an informed discussion about the assigned readings and topic? I think that's really easy to do. You are a super smart bunch, and I'm really looking forward to your active participation in class discussions. Remember, you don't have to agree with everything that you're reading, although a lot of the time you will. But you do have to be critical about it. And by critical, I don't mean negative. I mean you're critiquing it. You're looking at what it says. You're looking at how it says it. You're looking at some of the implications or issues that are involved. You could love it and still critique it. There is a template that I put at the end of the syllabus that I'm going to scroll down to here, which some students have found helpful in preparing their reading notes for every class. It's not something that you have to do. It's as it says here, it's recommended, not required, preparation for class. It's called Weekly Reading Memos. And it simply is a one-page, usually typewritten memo. I used to type these up when I would do them when I was a student. And it's pretty straightforward. You simply put the title in so you remember which reading it is, a 3 to 5 sentence summary in your own words. That's kind of key, in your own words, of the main argument made by the author of the piece. A bulleted list of 3 to 5 of the most important concepts with a 1 to 3 sentence definition of each concept. I'm very interested in how you apply the readings, so a contemporary example of a specific observation, problem, or issue that the author's main argument or the main concepts might help us understand. This is really important, especially when we're looking at our theoretical readings in the first half of class. We need to be able to think of a contemporary, a real-world example. And more importantly for us, we need to be able to think of comparative and international education examples that would be able to apply the author's main argument or the main concepts, or that would help, we would have help understanding whatever that situation is or that example is, using those theories or whatever it is. I'd also like a list. I think it's helpful. This is all voluntary, right? Not required. It's recommended. But if you're doing it, a list of 1 to 3 weaknesses you see in the author's argument or ideas. Can I just make it clear that this isn't critiquing the author's writing style or vocabulary usage or choice of topic even. It's critiquing the argument and the ideas. Did the author use appropriate evidence? Was it logically organized, or did you see a better way to do that? And I guess where I go with this is sometimes the potential problems ends up being sort of a whine fest. And when I say whine, I mean W-H-I-N-E, although you can do the other kind if you'd like to. People tend to whine about the readings, and what would be better, and by the way, that's me too. I tend to whine about the readings sometimes. What would be better, though, is if we could point out areas where there might be weaknesses, but also provide ideas for what an alternative might have been or how the author might have done it differently, and really see how that resonates with the rest of the class during the discussion. I think it would be helpful if you identified also at least 2 questions for discussion regarding this piece, and think about questions that would be engaging. Think about questions that begin with the words why or how, not the word what or is or something like that. You want questions that require some sort of thought and explanation. And then finally, if you're collaborating with other people on the readings, which you're welcome to do, you should just remember who you're collaborating with. I think that's important because it helps you then go back when you're going through your notes, or you're preparing for the take-home exams, or you're trying to figure out how you're going to structure your final assignment. You can remember who you were talking to about this and go back and have a conversation with them. So all really important part of participation. And I think it will help you as you move forward. So I'm also going to point out that since this is a class of both on-campus and online students, participation via the website is really important. And we have discussion pages already online for each week. And as a part of your participation grade, you're expected to post your comments or thoughts to each of the week's topics or readings. I say by the end of the day every Thursday after class, but really it's within 24 hours. And again, due to the magic of technology, that is what it now says, within 24 hours after class every Thursday. I've already talked a little bit about this when I pointed out the website, but let me just go back to, let's look at week 1, and you'll see it gives you instructions right here. Post your comments or thoughts to this week's readings topics within 24 hours after class using the Leave a Reply section below. So you go down to Leave a Reply and you say, this is where I will post my comments. Yippee. And you post it. And then it appears there. If it's the first time that you've ever posted a comment, then you won't see it appear immediately because I'll have to approve it before it gets posted. But the next time that you go in using that same email address or whatever it is you're logged on through when you're doing this, it'll post automatically after that, so you won't have to worry too much about it. Alright, so please make sure you're doing that. That's a really important part of your weekly participation, especially since we have a blended class with the on-campus and online students. It's going to be super important. Next, you are all expected to be a discussion activity leader at some point during the semester, and depending on how many students we have in class, which I think we have about 17, 18 enrolled, you might be pairing up with other people to lead a discussion activity on the videos or readings or whatever it is that's assigned for that day. You will be getting feedback from your classmates, hopefully during the course of your discussion activity. But what I want to emphasize is that you're not recapping or summarizing the readings. You are leading a discussion activity. So it's something that is active that gets the rest of the people in the class to become engaged in one idea or one concept or one issue related to that week's topic or readings. Right? That's important. I can give more examples of this in class, or you can talk to people who've taken my class before about what the best ones that they saw were. But it's really important that you not summarize. Do not summarize. Let me say that again. Don't summarize the readings. That's exactly not what I want you to do. Okay. And if you look at the syllabus, which let's find where that is now. Oh, I'm on the syllabus. If you look at the syllabus and you scroll down, you'll see that there are some weeks where there's a space for discussion leaders. Right? Those are the weeks that are available. So you might want to take a look at that before we meet for class the first day, because we will be putting names in those blank lines on the first day of class on October 27th. So think about which ones you would like to do, would fit into your schedule the best, or make the most sense for you. Next, on October 15th, let me make sure that's correct. On October 15th, it is correct, look at that. On October 15th, you will have a take-home exam due. It will consist of essay question options that will be provided to you at least 1 week before the due date, probably a lot earlier than that. Each of the essays, and you will have a couple of them to do, must be 3,000 words or less, including references. Now, when I say or less, I don't mean write 500 words and call it a day. There is such a thing as providing too little information. But I don't want you to go over 3,000 words. That's important, all right? Both of your essays should be typed and single-spaced. Please no smaller or larger than 12-point font Arial or Times New Roman with the word number limits observed. You have to hand them in, that's by email, no later than the beginning of class on October 15th. That is super important. So those essay questions will be related to all of the readings in the first half or the first module of class. So they'll be using a lot of the theories that we've been talking about. Great. Then, for your final project, you'll do it as a group. There'll be a presentation involved on December 3rd. That's the last day of class. It is going to be an audio podcast. This podcast is a whole class project with 3 groups preparing 3 acts of the podcast. In other words, there'll be an Act 1, an Act 2, and Act 3, much like a stage play. If you are familiar with a podcast called This American Life, we're going to be following their format. And you can go to their website and listen to examples, a bunch, thousands of examples there. I'm asking you to listen to 2 of their podcasts for week 1 and week 2 of the class as part of the assigned readings and materials, because it's really relevant to our topic of sociocultural issues in CIE. So you'll have 3 groups. Each group will prepare one of the acts, and although each group will create their own act of the podcast, they'll have to be integrated with each other in order to make a seamless or a whole podcast. So as I've already pointed out, you're going to listen to 2 podcasts from This American Life during the first 2 weeks of class. These podcasts will serve as a template and as a topic for your group project podcast. The topic is related to race and ethnicity, socioeconomic, status, cultural identity, and mass education. And really, some of the key words, I'm just going to type this in here, the key topics are integration and segregation in school worldwide. Right? Unlike the This American Life podcast, however, your challenge is to make a podcast that addresses these topics from a comparative and an international perspective. Obviously, This American Life is focused pretty heavily on America. You want to do something that's CIE. So we're using This American Life podcast to inspire us and as our template, but we're taking it much further by making it a CIE issue. And finally, there'll be an individual component of this assignment, and that means that each individual person, each of you individually, will be responsible for writing a 500-word introductory script and a 500-word concluding script. So there's usually a short intro, and then there's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and then a short conclusion. So you're doing the Act 1, 2, or 3 as a group, and then you're putting them all together as a class. But you're writing the intro parts individually, and then we will select together after those are turned in which ones we think are the best, or which ones we want to maybe merge together to make our final intro and concluding parts. All right. So if you have questions about the assignments, you should let me know. I'm happy to answer your questions. Next, we're going to look at the required books and reading resources and go over the class topics and reading assignments. And I will see you in the next podcast, or screencast. We're not doing podcasts yet.